So good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you guys today. So I'm happy that Simone, she did speak about God and the concept and the concept, yeah, yes, and the concept of God. Because today we're gonna talk about a phenomena that is happening and is awareness. Today is more about awareness and we're gonna, question, because that's part of the doctrine. Spiritism asks questioning, and that's why I opened with this famous phrase that David, would you like to read it, President?
Unshakable faith is only that which can meet reason face to face in every human epoch.
So, Spiritism asks us to what? To question things, right? That was the guidance of the spirits. How come? Well, the spirit's book and the medium's book is comprised of what? Questions. That's the form, isn't it? Because the person chosen to compile all the spirit's knowledge, Allan Kardec, he was an educator, a scientist, and it was in his nature, part of his nature, to question. So we as spiritists, when we say we have faith, I believe, we have to know why we believe. If you say, well, I believe in the communicability of the spirits, or I believe in reincarnation, but you cannot explain why you believe in reincarnation, that's blind faith. And that's not what? Spiritism. That's not what the spirits, that's not their guidance, that's not their proposal. Okay? And just letting you know, this is an open study, so if you want to comment or stop and ask a question, feel free to do so. Okay? We're going to ask, and I know Simone already talked about God, so we know that God exists. And you're like, Priscila, we're spiritists. Why you ask that? Does God exist? We're here because we understand that God exists. That's why we're here, right? Because you would not be here today if you didn't believe that God existed. But I'm asking this question because today we have a phenomenon that is happening in the world, more particularly here in North America and in Europe, that is called New Atheists. And who are the New Atheists? Do you guys know who the New Atheists are? They're teenagers and college kids. That's the fastest growing demographic related to religion today. We have the fastest growing religion in the world, which is Islam. And then we have the New Atheists. And then we're going to ask ourselves, why are our teenagers, our college students, so inclined in not believing in God?
Because formal religion tends to...
Exactly. We're going down that path. So when we talk about, inside of a Spiritist Center, we talk about God. We know what we're talking about here, right? Our God, the God that we perceive. And remember, there's no such a thing when I say our God, because God is the same for everyone. So I cannot claim God to myself. Can I claim God and say my God? Our God? Our God? No, it's God. God is God. It's everyone's God. But the way we Spiritists understand God is different from the way other, religions understand God. My question is, are we the majority? Are we the majority? We are not the majority. We are the striking, very small minority, Spiritists. Today we have 31% in the world are Christians. And we are Christians too, because we follow the teachings of Jesus. But when they perform these surveys, when they say Christians, what type of beliefs are they talking about when they say Christians? They are talking about the people that believe in the Bible, right? And the God exactly as the Bible says. And then we have 22% of people that are what in the world that are from Islam. It's not Islam. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it. Islam. Dennis, that's a breakfast special with Dennis. Huh? So in Islam, we have 22%, and they believe in Allah, the God of the Al-Quran, right? Who is a very different God from the God we understand, we as spirits understand. This is the God of most religions. The God is a very anthropomorphic figure. What does that mean? That the God of the majority of the religions, majority of the beliefs today, is a God that has human feelings. Why do I say that? Okay, it's not common that we hear that a country is being is paying for certain things that they did because God doesn't like their behavior. So therefore, that's why they have a hurricane or earthquake. Like with Haiti, what happened in Haiti a few years ago. A lot of people said that what had happened in Haiti was because God was unsatisfied with the way that Haitians were conducting their lives. And I'm not talking about a small portion of society. I'm talking, especially here in the U.S., I'm talking a large portion of society believes in this God. And this God that if you're doing what I like you to do according to what it says in the sacred scriptures, I'm happy and you're chosen. But if you don't believe in me, then you're not chosen. And I'm not going to save you. Right? Don't the majority of the other religions, they believe that if you're not part of my religion, you're not going to be saved. Isn't that what the majority believes? So, and then we have all the sacred books. So we have the Bhagavad Gita, we have the Bible, and we have the Quran. There are many others, but we're going to talk mostly about these three. Just as an example. Now, all the religious people that follow these specific religions, they claim that these are sacred books. And by sacred books, they mean that is the truth. Right? And the question is, how many truths are there? If something is true, right? If I'm claiming and I'm describing a chair and I'm telling you how a chair is, and I'll say this is the truth. So whatever varies from my explanation is not going to be true, correct? Because if my explanation of the chair is the truth, you cannot claim that other explanations of the same chair, if they vary from my explanation, they're true. So can I have many truths? Thinking of a scientific mind. And I'm going to explain to you why with a scientific mind. So we have the kids, right? And the kids, when they're little, what do we tell our kids when they're little? Behave. If you don't behave, and if you don't go to school, you're not going to be anyone in life, right?
Yeah, you're not going to get chocolate.
You got to be happy, to have a family, to get a job, to do anything, you have to go to school, don't we? So we put that huge importance, and that's what we convey to our kids, that school is the most important thing in the world, don't we? We do that as a society. I'm not saying personally if you don't do it, but as a society, that's what we convey to kids. And what do they teach in school? Science, right? And how do they teach the kids to think how scientists think? Now, if you're telling your kids that that's the most important thing, that that's how it's cool, that that's how you should behave, that's how you should frame your mind with a scientific mind, that's what they're going to do, and that's what they're doing. So when they're presented with these types of religions, and I'm not saying anything not negative about any religions, because we as Spiritists, we understand that we all need different things in certain moments of our evolution, right? Don't we?
And
So-
the parents lost their faith.
And the parents, well, and another thing that happens is the parents, they don't turn to the kids and say, if you follow Jesus' teachings, or if you're from another religion, well, if you're a good person, if you love the others, if you care about others, and if you pursue your own passion and happiness, and you don't hurt anyone, you're going to be happy in life. Well, that's not the main. We focus on the material as a society. Again, as a society, I'm not judging anyone personally, but as a society, that's the message we convey. So these kids, when they go to school, that's what they see. That's how their minds are framed. Of course, they're not going to accept this. When they say they're atheists, they do not believe in God. What are they saying? They do not believe in these gods. They don't believe how God is portrayed. But it is dangerous, and that's why I'm bringing the awareness today. Because it's dangerous because they're discarding any God, any interpretation of God. They simply say, well, I don't believe in these interpretations, so I don't believe in God at all. And that when in all of the, especially the fundamentalist religious people, they have a hard time when you try to, when scientists or science or now the kids, they try to understand their faith through reasoning. They don't like questioning, do they? Because when they say, for example, well, God is a God of love. Well, if God is a God of love, how come they send like the little kids of Africa that have not known your God to hell because, well, but they never had a chance to know your God, how can they go to hell? So they start asking, and of course, the religious fundamentalists, they don't like those questions. They don't like the questioning because they're not used to using what? Combining religious belief, philosophy, and science. And how do we, Spiritists, we approach any religious matter? Do we approach any religious matter with only religiosity? No, because the Spiritism has a triple aspect. What are the three aspects of Spiritism? Philosophy, science, and religion. So Spiritism, it is a philosophy that has moral and ethical consequences, right, based in scientific proofs. Not necessarily proofs of what we're experiencing, but scientific knowledge. So we're very comfortable. We are very, Spiritists, we as Spiritists, we are very comfortable in analyzing and questioning what we know, aren't we? Do we have a sacred book? Do we have, what is, a sacred book is something that you cannot change, that you cannot question. Do we have that? No, we don't have a sacred book. Because we're supposed to question. Because think about it, if we are we totally evolved? Are we done with our evolution? Are we done with our evolution? No, we're still on our way, right? So if we're not done, it means that we're not able yet to understand the whole. We're not able to understand the truth. And who is the truth? And what is, not who, but what is the truth? God is the truth. But we're not yet able to understand God. And we cannot pretend we do. We can feel Him, the connection, and we're going to talk about that. And so, David, could you please read it?
I do not feel obliged to believe that the same God who has endowed us with sense, reason, and intellect has intended us to forego their use.
So we don't have to turn off our minds when we believe in God. We don't have to turn off our intellect when we believe and talk about the ethical and moral teachings of Jesus. Because it makes perfect sense. It makes logical sense. Right? So there is one church, I don't know if you have seen, and this is not a joke. This is an actual church. It's called the Flying Spaghetti Monster Church. Who has heard of it? You have heard of the Flying Spaghetti Monster Church. So the Flying Spaghetti Monster Church was a movement created, and I heard of this church back in 2009. We had at UCF, has anyone here gone to UCF? You guys went to UCF? Back in 2009, there was this God debate, the existence of God debate between Dinesh D'Souza and Hitchens, and Christopher Hitchens, one of the most famous atheists. He has passed away, and they talked about this, and they had Dinesh talking about Christianity, and they had Hitchens talking about the atheism, and they talked about and Hitchens spoke of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. I wanted to understand what it was. And the Flying Spaghetti Monster Church is a church that was created because the atheists, they were attacked by the religious people, because when they were questioning beliefs and when they were trying to use scientific knowledge and methods to test some of the beliefs, the churches, they would the churches and the mosques, they would as a group sue them, because they can't do that, right? Because here you have protection. If you're religious and you have your beliefs, you're protected by law. So they founded this church as a 501c3, so they can freely express their beliefs or their non-beliefs, if you will. And the kids really enjoy it because they use science freely. And of course it's a joke in a sense that there's no such spaghetti monster, right? That they worship the Flying Spaghetti Monster. We know that. And the website is called venganza.org. And if you don't know, venganza in Spanish is revenge. It's their revenge. And kids, they love it. And that's what they talk about. That's they're interested in. Why are they interested in it? And then listening to these debates, and these are the main people, these are the main faces of the new atheism, this movement that I'm talking about here today. And then we have certain comedians, but the majority of these people, they're one of our top scientists in the world. We have Nobel Prizes here. We have top scientists in their field. And when you listen to them, a lot of their questioning, they make a lot of sense in a lot of things. And a lot of things that they said cannot be answered by a lot of religions. And I understand why they're not getting their answers. But we can answer them. And if you ever listen to one of these people, especially Dawkins, Richard Dawkins, the recently passed Hitchens, Daniel Dennett, they make a lot of sense, and a lot of things that they say are part of Spiritism. However, when they question certain things, we can answer. We have those answers in our books. Because again, we have the triple aspects. And when I realized that, and it took me a little while to finally put it all two together, I'm like, oh, because that's what our kids need. That's the type of questioning they have. And they're going to find it in Spiritism. Because that's how their minds are framed. And that's why we have the books the way we do. That's why the spirits, they brought the message the way they did. Because it had to be packed in that way. That knowledge had to be available now. Because that's what they're looking for. So that's why kids are attracted, because we talk so highly of science, of school, and then we have the people that are the top mathematicians, the top. Tyson is he studies the cosmos. He's a cosmologian and a physicist. And then you have Daniel Dennett, one of the greatest philosophers. So you have all these people that are so smart. And usually when you have very smart people and you don't feel so smart, what do you think? Oh, if he believes, and that's what they believe, if they're telling me that God doesn't exist, that I should not have a religion, well, fine, who am I, right, to question. So just, so what is atheism, David?
It's a disbelief or lack of belief in the existence of God or gods.
Okay. And in some way, we're all kind of atheists. And you're going to be like, how come are we atheists? Well, do you believe in Thor? Do you believe in you believe in Thor? The movie? I know that movie rocks. No, yeah. But no, real Thor. Do you believe in Zeus? No? So you're atheist in the sense that you don't believe in those gods, right? So in that sense, we don't believe in those gods. But we're not atheists because we believe in God. But are we theists then? If we're not, I'm sorry, I got confused here. Okay. If we're not atheists, are we theists? We're not. A lot of spiritists, they think they're theists. I'm like, oh, I'm not atheist. I'm theist. No, you're not. And I'll explain to you all. That's a matter of definition. And it's good to understand what we are, right? David, please.
The view usually entails the idea that God is beyond human comprehension, perfect and self-sustained, but also peculiarly involved in the world and its events.
That is the problem here. Not the first part, but the second part. What is peculiarly involved in the world and its events? Means that if David goes home today and prays, so he gets for Christmas a bicycle. Let me make it funny. A brand new bicycle, right? And he prays, God is just gonna go change all its natural laws to accommodate what David wants, right? And just forget about everyone. David prayed, I'm gonna give David the bicycle. David, if you want a bicycle, let me know. Okay. So that's the theist God. But we're not theists. We're deists. David.
It is the belief that God has created the universe, but remains apart from it and permits his creation to administer itself through natural laws. Deism thus rejects the supernatural aspects of religion, such as belief in revelation in the Bible, and stresses the importance of ethical conduct. In the 18th century, numerous important thinkers held deist beliefs.
Because we don't think that religious matters are supernatural. Do we think they're supernatural? If you read the Genesis, well, miracles are not supernatural. We just don't understand, and now we understand because the spirits, they explain to us how it works. They're just, what? Part of the natural world. They're not supernatural. They're natural. It's just we didn't understand before. So everything that we don't understand, what do? We call it supernatural, right? Oh, we don't understand, so it's something beyond our comprehension. Let's call it supernatural. And we don't believe that God reveals itself in a book, right? We spirits, we believe that God reveals itself in other human beings, in other creatures, through nature, but not in the form of a book, right? And especially here, if you pay attention, in the 18th century, numerous important thinkers held deist beliefs. And the 18th century, and then it was very, these thoughts were very important for a movement. It was the beginning of a movement in Europe called Illuminism. And who was part of this movement? Spiritism was part of the Illuminist movement. And so the knowledge of deism started right before the spirits had brought us this concept of God. Now we're gonna, the most famous arguments, one of the most famous arguments that they use, I brought you some of the arguments that the new atheists used when debating for the existence of God are the following. The first one,
God almost certainly does not exist.
well, they say God cannot exist. Let me use this one first, and then there's one theory from Fred Hoyle. He said Fred Hoyle is a probability theory, and he says that the universe is so complex that it is improbable that it was not created by an intelligent being. It's very highly improbable. And he compares it to a hurricane putting a Boeing 747 together. He says it's the same as chance. Well, if you can believe that by chance and mathematics, that's the math of it. If you put one by one side, this is the same probability of having a hurricane putting, like, let's say you have all the pieces of an airplane all through. If you throw all the pieces of an airplane on the floor, and then a hurricane passes, a hurricane can put it all together perfectly. That's
and working.
Huh?
And
work.
and
No.
working.
Yeah,
Not
work.
just putting together. Has
Putting
to work.
together work like brand new from factory.
Yeah.
Is the same probability of having the universe being put together by accident, by chance.
He's refuting his own argument.
He's refuting his own argument. Yeah, and then but you know what they say? What you know the new atheists say, David? When he says that, when the Fred Hoyle says that, and this argument is using the probability of improbability, they say, well, but then you're creating an even more complex being to explain a complex problem. Because then, to explain the creation of the universe, which is complex, you're creating God, a God. And God is even more complex of a being, of a thing. So you're creating a more complex
It's
being
a lot of,
to
a lot
solve.
of hubris.
Exactly.
When we try to comprehend a being that is way beyond what we even know today on Earth
But-
in space.
And that is the problem. And when we're going to talk, and that's what we're going to conclude, and that's how we conclude. Because in Spiritism, we understand that God is out of our comprehension. And the spirits, they even tell us that God is out of the material world. So we have the material world, we have the spirits, right? And we have God, right? Remember that? So God is, a lot of people say, well, God is an energy. No, God is not an energy. Because energies matter, and God is not matter. So God, if God is out of the material world, and science has scientific methods that deal with the natural world to test things that exist within the natural world, can they ever find God? Because no. The answer is no, because they're looking in the wrong place. Because God is not in the material world. It's not in the natural world. They're never going to find God this way. The Big Bang, the same thing. And they say, well, now we know that God did not create the world. Because the world was created, the universe was created by the Big Bang. There we go. Therefore, we killed your God. Well, then that is the question: is how did the Big Bang start it? Well, nothing cannot come from nothing, correct? Nothing cannot come from nothing. Well, God, then there is people. So God created the Big Bang. God has started the Big Bang, and then the atheists go and who created God? If nothing can come from nothing. See how it is? But then we know that matter cannot come from nothing. But since we do not understand the nature of God and what is God and how the essence, I don't know if it can be created from nothing. The universe is hostile to life. this to counterattack the fine-tuning argument. Because a lot of religious people, they use the argument that the whole universe is so fine-tuned for life that only an intelligent being could have created, because you could not have life if it wasn't for the extremely fine-tuned. Then the scientists, they go with, well, there's a fallacy in your argument because it's simply not true. You cannot say that the universe is fine-tuned to life, because then God will be a very wasteful God, because it's like having a whole mansion and then you have like the head of a pin habitated by life. So you would have life, so you have a whole mansion, and then you have just a little head of a pin that has life, that can actually have life. And what is our answer to that, Spiritus? We have that answer. What is it?
There are many places.
Well, there are many places, many dimensions, and
In my Father's house, there are
many mansions, and exactly. And what kind of life are we talking about here? Carbon life? Well, right now we cannot detect. We're not able to detect carbon life in other planets. But who are we to say that's the only kind of life that there is? We know the spirits are alive because we can communicate with spirits. They're not made of carbon, right? The Bible and other religious books, the non-agreements, that's something that they use all the time. It's like, well, but if Christians, they say they're right, and the Muslims say they're right, who's right? Who has the truth? So, therefore, none of you are right. That's their conclusion. If you're not right, he's not right. You know what? No one is right. God does not exist. Everything they conclude, they jump really fast to this conclusion. God does not exist. Well, we know that what happens in human history. We needed that knowledge in that moment, didn't we? That's what we needed. That's what we were capable of, right? Trying to survive, to understand, to evolve. That was the best we could do at that moment. And we would get better and better and better, right? And then this one is huge, suffering. Because we say, and most religions, they say that God is good and just. All right, is there evil in the world?
Yes.
There's evil in the world, right? And then there's a problem with the omnipresence of God. If we say that God, what is being omnipresent? Huh? Being everywhere. So God is everywhere, right? And there's evil in the world. So where there's evil, if God is just and he's omnipresent, can God be there? Huh? There is, but that is again, as if there's a fallacy in their interpretation. Because we Spiritists know that there is no evil. I know the most of people, we interpret it as evil, but we know that there is no such a thing as evil, David.
It's like Elias read in the opening message. There is no evil, there are only corrections.
Exactly, because God is our Father, right? Like he just read to us. God is our Father. So there is no suffering. The spirits, they tell us what appears to you as evil is only what? Ignorance. Is our lack of understanding God and how His laws work.
And that's a thought attached to someone who doesn't believe in the multiplicity of existences.
Exactly. Also, because then you don't understand the purpose of suffering. Right, David? Then I bring this person because he is just, in my view, a lovely human being, and I think everyone should read his book, especially The Man's Search for Meaning. And this man, for those who don't know, his name is Viktor Frankl. He's the father of a psychological school. and he was a kid. He experienced the concentration camp, the most famous one, Auschwitz. He was in Auschwitz, and he saw his whole family being murdered, his whole friends and neighbors being tortured. And when he was having these experiences, he realized that people wanted to live. None of them committed suicide. In those horrible conditions, some of them might have, they lost their minds, but none of them would commit suicide. And he, as a kid, he realized there was a driving force, something inside of them, in spite of the suffering, like innate knowledge that there was a purpose for that. There was a meaning for what they were going through. And I can't explain. And just go ahead, do yourself a favor, buy this book. It's really beautiful, and you're gonna cry a lot, but it's not. It's good tears.
Easy reading.
Yes, easy reading, good tears. Then we go back again to Simon's. God is the supreme intelligence, first cause of all things, right? That is what they told us about God, the spirits. David, but when Kardec wanted to know more, because Kardec was very curious. Remember, he was a scientist. So when Kardec was, but tell me more about God. Explain me more about God. Besides the attribute, they didn't go much further, did they? No, because David, please.
You must understand that there are things which transcend the intelligence of the most intelligent man, and for which your language, limited to your ideas and sensations, has no expressions.
See, he's saying our limited ideas and sensations.
It's like explaining steam to a primitive being.
They wouldn't
How
be
can
able.
it move such heavy machines?
Exactly.
You can't even see it.
Or your cell phone. Forget about. And see how they say here, in the most intelligent man. And we have today the most intelligent men trying to understand God and thinking they can prove God. They can, if there's God, there is evidence of God. But we know.
This is part of evolution. Everybody will be there one day.
Oh,
Some of
One
them
day.
understand without even read anything and heard anything.
they will
Just inside
they
us
will
already.
they will understand God.
Exactly.
But Lizzie, one thing.
I know people need education, need to know, but
the main reason
they will be there.
But Lizzie, the main reason I have brought this presentation today, this thought today for us, is that we have it. We have the answers that our kids, our teenagers, our young people, they're looking for. We have in Spiritism, because we do not discriminate. Because we accept science. We use philosophy. We are science. We are philosophy, and we are religion. So we are not afraid of questions. We're open. That's what we are. That's what the Spirits want. They want us to question. That's why that first phrase that I opened our presentation is so powerful. And then I brought this thing of having.
I can see how it might be possible for a man to look down upon the earth and be an atheist, but I cannot conceive how he could look up into the heavens and say there is no God.
Yeah, only. And then there is one more, so we can.
I see a pattern, but my imagination cannot picture the maker of that pattern. I see a clock, but I cannot envision the clockmaker. The human mind is unable to conceive of the four dimensions, so how can it conceive of a God, before whom 1,000 years and 1,000 dimensions are as one?
There you go.
Albert Einstein. There we go. And that's he's humble, so that's why he. And I like to close with that. And when we do, and I have a
Did you
proposal.
want to say?
I'm sorry.
When he closes his thoughts.
Right?
I'm sorry.
No, it's
Because
okay.
that's what I was thinking.
Yes, exactly. And what I ask from you is when we're doing here, David is doing who's doing the vibrations today? David, when David is doing the vibrations, let's feel God. Because we might not understand God with our minds yet, right? But we feel God, don't we? So let's feel God inside, out, inside of us, out of us, and within our friends, okay? Thank you so much.
The book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, written by Allan Kardec, and other Spiritist works are available at ediceiofamerica.com. That is EDICEI of America.com. Thank you for watching.